So when it comes down to it, the actual number it looks like is about 28 pounds of muscle, which is that really that unreasonable to think that you could put on that much if you have good genetics? People don't seem to have a clue when it comes to the numbers on these natural transformations, and we're looking at Hussein Farhat and his apparent 60-pound transformation over 2.5 years, and how this could actually be true that he did this naturally. And you're thinking, what are you talking about? You can't put on that much muscle, even with PEDs, with steroids, with everything, in 2.5 years, and I totally agree. So let me know down in the comments first off if you think the guy is natural or not, and I'm gonna show you why this transformation isn't as crazy as you think it is. So let's get to the numbers and I'll show you why. Because I put on close to the same amount of muscle in the same amount of time as this guy naturally, and I'll go over how that worked out. So first off, the claim.
And how much muscle someone with good genetics could realistically grow in 3 years, which is about 26 pounds, when Hussein gained more than double that, 60 pounds.
Now, I don't know where this 60 pounds came from, because I watched the guy's video, and in it he said he went from 139 pounds to 189 pounds at peak bulk. And keep in mind, peak bulk. So first off, 60 pounds, that's not right. And I will say, even though I go through these numbers, I'm not saying that he is natural for sure. He definitely could have used steroids or whatever, but he's pretty open about willing to take whatever test, just like Matt Does Fitness did. So we're now at 50 pounds, and yes, 50 pounds of muscle in 2.5 years would be quite extraordinary. But again, this isn't just muscle. And what kind of gets me is, we see these pictures of him here. We've got 139 pounds starting point, and we said 189 pounds peak bulk, but the picture that people are showing are actually here where he is saying he's at 176 pounds, where he's currently sitting about that much. So that 176 is 13 pounds less than the 189 peak bulk, which now brings us down to 37 pounds of muscle. Again, 37 pounds of muscle, if it was all muscle, would be pretty extraordinary in 2.5 years. Now, if you look at Greg Doucette's natural muscle gains, the first year top end is 12 pounds, and then we have 8 pounds at the top end, then 3 years is 6. So that's 26 pounds, and we're looking at 11 pounds more than that, which is pretty extraordinary, right, for a natural guy. But this is something too that people don't quite get. I don't know why when it comes to the numbers, but let's say in the starting point, he's 11% body fat. Now you might say, no, he's way higher than that. Look at him, you don't see much muscle at all. Well, the guy hardly has any muscle to start with. And he's also not flexed, he's not pumping. He didn't know how to do that stuff, similar to my own transformations when I started documenting my progress. I didn't know how to pose properly. I'd seen pumping iron and stuff like that, but I didn't practice posing, and I didn't really know how to pose my abs. I might just tighten my abs like this and be sticking them out, versus, oh, look, now I have abs. And you see me just standing here normal. You don't really see abs, but oh, I turn, I suck in right, I crunch. Oh, look, all of a sudden there's obliques, there's abs. If he had posed properly in the before photo, I think we would see a lot more. So we'll say he's at 11% there. And let's say he's at 11% also here at 176 pounds. You might think, there's no way. He has to be way lower than 11% body fat here at 176, but he competed in a bodybuilding show at 166 pounds. So that's 10 pounds less than this. And we'll be generous and say he was 5% body fat there. So if he's 5% there and he gained 10 pounds, well, from 166, let's go through it. 1.6 pounds, 3.2, that's 2% more. So essentially 3.2 times 3, that puts us 6% over, is at what, 9.6 pounds? So roughly 10 pounds heavier. That's 6% body fat more, which would put him at 11% at 176 pounds. Now, if you go from 11% at 139 to 11% at 176, not all of that can be muscle, because in order to maintain that, 11% of the 37 pounds gained would have to be fat, just to keep the same body composition. If you only gain muscle, your body fat percentage would go down. So that takes off another 4 pounds of muscle, because 11% of 37 is roughly 4. It's like 4.06 or something like that. But we'll just round down to 4. So now we're down to 33 pounds of muscle. You see how it's dropping quickly? Well, that would still be impressive, right? In 2.5 years, or 3 in this case, but there's something else we need to consider. Supplements, and I'm not talking about the PEDs, right? I'm talking about the natural supplements. And what's the one that everyone says you should get on when you start?
Now, creatine is one of the most researched and effective supplements to building muscle.
And what does creatine do? It makes you hold more water in the muscles so you can push a little bit harder, get more reps, but that water is in your muscles. It makes you gain weight. You can gain up to 5 pounds in the first month of taking creatine. And if he's a hyper responder, we'll say, yeah, he's at that top end of 5 pounds. So then what happens? That's 5 pounds of water he's holding from when he started. So let's take another 5 pounds off that. And now we're at 28 pounds of muscle. You see how quickly that went from 60 to 28? And what was the top end of that natural genetics we talked about? 26 pounds. So is it unreasonable to say that he's at 28 if he is a hyper responder, if he's top tier, really pushes hard? Because I can tell you, I did the same thing. I went from 158 pounds, and then over the next 3 years, I had bulked all the way up to 192 at the top, and then I cut back down for my first bodybuilding show that I did 3 years after I first started training hard. I was 20 pounds more, and you think, oh, 20 pounds, that's not a big deal. But if you look closely, I am way leaner in the second one, probably by about 4% at least. And so that 4% at 178 pounds is roughly 7 pounds. So you add that on top, that's 27 pounds in 3 years if I was at the same body fat percentage as the first photo. So 27 pounds in 3 years is definitely doable when you know what you're doing, because I messed around with bodybuilding a little bit on and off. I mostly only did upper body stuff. I didn't start training my legs until I was in my 30s. So I had a decent muscular base already for my upper body, but then when I really locked in my first year, I bought Greg Doucette's training book. I did a 60-minute push-pull leg split twice a week for a year, and I had his cookbook. I was making sure I got the amount of protein I needed per day. I put on like 12 pounds of muscle the first year. I've got a whole video showing how I did that, but if you notice, my upper body didn't change a whole lot, but my legs blew up. So if you imagine those muscle gains there, and I did it in mostly my legs, probably 75% of it was in the legs, because the upper body did grow some. If I had been totally untrained in the upper body, who knows, that could have been like 15, 16 pounds I gained that first year. So when you really push hard and get everything right, you can see huge gains. When you start out skinny, it's a lot easier to see those muscle gains, as opposed to if you're really obese and overweight and you're having to cut a lot of fat and you're working out hard, you don't see those changes a lot, but you can really see them build if you're in that skinnier zone of building up and you know what you're doing and you just set your mind to it and you do it right and really train hard. Because most people, I don't see training hard, I don't see tracking what they're doing, and that's a lot of people's problems. If you just stay consistent with the training and the diet, you will see a lot of good progress. But I was able to do close to the same transformation for myself in my early 30s over 3 years, from 31 to 34, with testosterone levels in the low 500s. Last time I had it checked, it was at 511. And this guy is 19, going to 22, and his testosterone level was around 617, I believe, was what Greg Doucette covered in his video when he went over his blood work.
If you convert it to nanograms per deciliter, it's 617.
A lot of his videos and stuff I've seen when he was up at the 189, the peak bulk, he's wearing the shirts that are pretty much covering everything except his arms. He never looked fat, but you do have more body fat, and you don't realize how much you can gain and still look muscular as your muscles get bigger because they stand out more. And you'll notice that he never really showed his legs either. He's always wearing pants. And that kind of makes me think of Matt Does Fitness. The dude always looks shredded in the upper body, but I have never seen his legs look lean. I've never seen cuts in them. They're massive. I mean, he deadlifts like 700 or something like that. What's 320? Close to 700. Everyone sees the upper body and abs and stuff and a big chest and think you look shredded and massive, but they just happen to carry their fat probably in the lower half, in your quads, in your glutes. For me, I got down to 175 for my bodybuilding show, and I'm the same height as this dude, Hussein, and he was 166, so I was 9 pounds heavier than him. But I needed to diet even more because my quads just never really got that cut, even though my chest and my back and everything was pretty cut. Like, it was crazy the difference there. So, you know, let me know what you think in the comments if you considered all these different numbers before, because I just saw these videos coming out this week about the anabolic stick and all these other people saying this guy's a fake natty, he's just trying to make money, unrealistic expectations, blah blah blah. And it really seems more of just a factor of being misleading and with the numbers and stuff. Like, maybe I should make a video like this too that seems misleading, because For me, I started out at 157.8. So let's say, oh, I saw 157, so let's round down to that, right? So 157 is my starting point. Here's my transformation. Okay, I could use this picture here as my starting point. I could show my peak bulk at 192, where I did see the scale hit 200 one night. It was a 43 pound difference, right? And it's like, well, you know, it was 157-ish, so let's just round down to 155. And this is the type of things people are thinking, right? So we're gonna call it a 45 pound transformation. But that doesn't really look that impressive, so how about instead, I'll use my bodybuilding show picture because I look shredded and ripped, right? That's 175. Well, how about I slap on this picture when I was younger and I was really skinny and I was about 130 pounds here. So, I mean, this is me in both these pictures, and this is also 45 pound difference. This looks way more drastic. It's a 45 pound difference there. I did have a 45 pound difference in my 3-year transformation. So, you know, it's all kind of good, right? I mean, it's not really lying because all that stuff was true at certain times. That's the kind of stuff that goes into some of these things, and it's misleading, and really misleading is lying because you're not telling the whole truth. But that's the kind of stuff I think people do to make it look more interesting, because you're probably gonna click on a 60 pound natural transformation over 3 years versus 28 pound natural transformation. People are like, oh, well, that's no big deal, because they're so used to seeing the steroids and everyone. And people say it's unrealistic, but who do you think you're gonna see online? It's gonna be the top level people who have the best genetics. I mean, that's just how it goes. But, you know, let me know what you think. Hit that like button if this was informative. Subscribe for more content like this. I've got all kinds of stuff on diet, training. I do live videos. I'm doing a trial of turkesterone right now. I'm about to enter phase 3 of it. It's been working okay, putting on about a pound-ish a month. Which I haven't done since that first year of newbie gains. So we'll see how that goes. I'll link that video as well. And hopefully, I'll see you soon. Don't let other people's good transformations keep you from doing yours. I see posts from people on Reddit all the time. Should I quit bodybuilding? I'm like, why would you quit? You'll never get better for sure. The one way to guarantee you won't succeed is to quit. So you might as well keep going.